So it's good to see everybody in their Christmas attire. I may or may not have outgrown my Christmas sweater this year. So I don't have one. Plus, it's super hot. I saw a meme this week that said, it's been such a busy year, I didn't have time to lose the weight that I had planned to. So I don't know if that was you, but I put it on today, and it was just, I went into the bathroom, I was like, okay, is this really tight? Like, it seemed really, really, I don't know if anybody else had that experience, but I'm just grateful for this place. I'm grateful for this time of year. The best Christmas ever. What's your best Christmas ever? Have you ever thought about that? I don't know if you've, I thought about it this week. I'm not sure that I could pinpoint one. It's, I guess when you get to be my age, they kind of run together, but I can remember some things that stand out. Had it a lot to do with, the people that were there, or maybe it was a gift that you received or whatever it is, but I don't know what makes up the best Christmas ever, but I'm trying to make this the best Christmas ever because of the gifts that I have brought for you. And as promised, don't want to disappoint, I have another one for you this week. So I know you're excited about this. If you're new here, it's your first time joining us, or if you're watching online, my gift to all of you as I'm using this platform to inform drivers, because I feel like there's a need for that as I'm on the roads, and maybe this will help with my road rage. So this week, and I know we have some law enforcement officers here, and they may or may not agree with my direction, but that's okay. I'll probably be ticketed later. But anyway, I have another one for you this week. Just so you know, this little deal here on the right side of your picture, that, my friends, is called an acceleration lane, okay? Say it. It's called what? Say it with me. It's an acceleration lane. You are supposed to be 70 miles an hour by the time you get to the end of that lane, okay? That is called an acceleration lane, not putt-putt on the interstate and get everybody killed, okay? That's not what that's called. So just a little tip, that's my tip of the day for you today. If you're exiting the interstate, that is called a deceleration lane, okay? So you get over and then you slow down, not before, okay? So just a little friendly tip. I know you appreciated that. Merry Christmas to you all. I really like these tips. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, really, year-round. So hopefully you'll experience that and be informed drivers on the road, just doing my part. Talk about the gift that keeps on giving. It's Jesus, right? We talk a lot about Jesus this time of year, and we're in this season called Advent. It means really just waiting or expecting or hoping. And there's pieces of the Advent season. Last week we talked about hope. What does it mean to have hope? And this week I want to talk to you about peace. And Jesus became the hope for people that had been walking in darkness for a long time. Israelites, I shared with you last week that there was this period of Israel where they heard from prophets and they heard from different people, but then there was this period of darkness. And when you flip from the Old Testament to the New Testament, it's from Malachi to Matthew for us, but when you flip that page, that represents 400 years of God not speaking to humans and not communicating to his creation. And so it was really a dark period. People were desperate to hear from God, and they had all these different prophecies. There are actually 44 different prophecies that Jesus fulfilled from the Old Testament, dating all the way back to Genesis. From the beginning of time, they had been hearing about this Messiah that was coming, that was going to save Israel and was going to restore the nation of Israel. And so there was just this desperate deal for that. But so we talked about, last week we talked about that hope that people had. And then there's this other word that comes around Christmas. You see it. I think we probably have it somewhere around the church. You wouldn't have to look too hard. But it's peace. And we talk about peace a lot. That's a word. I remember as a kid, we had and I'm going to date myself. Who here had 3 channels growing up? Okay, there you are. You're old, just so you know. So you're officially old people, okay? We had 3 channels, and if the president was on, you were toast, right? Because he was on 3 channels, and you had to watch that. But if you remember, there was this, and some of you young people can just let us reminisce for a minute, but there was this thing that it would bump, it was like the cool music, and it was a special that would come on, and you knew that it was about to be a good TV night. Frosty came on once a year. It was always on Wednesday night, and we had prayer meeting, and I had to miss it. Not bitter about that at all. I didn't see Frosty until last year. But But we had all these things, and if you had one TV channel, there was just certain things. And I remember one of the things that would come on once a year was Miss America, and you better believe that we watched that. I can't believe my parents let me watch that. But anyway, but what's the one thing that Miss America always says? What do you want, right? It's world peace, right? Like they want world peace. They just want world peace. And I don't know that that's ever happened in the history of the world. But it's a word that we constantly see at Christmas. It's the second week focus of the Advent seasons. And the word peace is mentioned 362 times in the Bible. And so, I'm not sure about you, but for me, it can be kind of hard to find, especially young parents with children. Like, there's just no peace. I remember my parents used to try to sleep on Sunday afternoon. Like, they would take the old we used to call it a Nazarene nap. Like, they would just go home from church, eat a big meal, and then you're cashed out for the afternoon. Some of us still do that. So anyway, but we would always wake them up, and my parents would always be like, "Well, can't I get just a moment of peace?" You're desperate for this peace. And I probably remember times in my life when moments, and I don't know about you, what that looks like for you. If you could remember a moment that was peaceful in your life, where would that be? Would it be sitting in a deer stand? Is it at the beach? Is it getting a massage? Is it at the spa? Where is your moment of peace, and how do you find it? Where do you find that level of peace or that memory or that feeling? And we have sayings like, peace be with you, or go in peace, and I'm at peace with it, or whatever. However you define it, we probably would like more of it, wouldn't we? I think we would just love to feel at peace with our life. And sometimes you just don't feel at peace. You don't feel at peace with your family. You don't feel at peace in your, Cheryl and I had a moment this week where we did not feel at peace with our marriage. It happens, It was all her fault, but but you just have those moments, right, where you're just not at peace, and it doesn't feel peaceful at Christmas, and it doesn't feel like there's anything that you can get your career, or you can't figure out where you're headed, or who am I going to marry if you're young, and you're like trying to find, and you just have all this anxiety and frustration. There's no peace. But peace is the hallmark of the Christmas story. So what are we supposed to take from this, and how do we apply it practically? This Advent, second week of Advent, which is all about peace. Where do we find it? What is it? Why is it elusive? What did Jesus mean? What did God have in mind for us when he talked about peace? And so we're going to jump right into it. There's a passage in Luke chapter 2 that we hear all the time at Christmas. If you're a Christian and you've been at church, you've heard this passage recited in Christmas programs. We've read it every year. The Christmas story is not new for some of us. And so we've heard this over and over. But I want to refer to the second chapter of Luke. And it's a familiar passage, and even those of us that may not be super familiar with the Bible probably have heard about shepherds and wise men. And this particular passage in Luke chapter 2 is talking about when the angels appeared to these shepherds. And there's so much there that we could unpack as to why God would reveal himself to shepherds of all people. Keep in mind that they've had this, Israel is, he spoke through prophets, and prophets would then deliver. And then, so after a period of silence of 400 years, the people that God chose to speak with first, shepherds. Like, lowest of the economical totem pole. They were, when you take care of sheep, you smell like sheep. And they were not socially accepted. They kind of lived as nomads on the hillsides taking care of this livestock. And they were just kind of the lower realm of society with respect to the first century Jerusalem. And so God chose to speak to shepherds. And you may have heard this story. You can read it in chapter 2 of Luke. But the shepherds were guarding their flock, and all of a sudden, bright lights, angels, and they're terrified. And most oftentimes when you read in Scripture, when angels appear, people are terrified. I guarantee if an angel appeared to you right now or somewhere this week, you would freak out. They are intimidating-looking individuals. And so these shepherds appear. Naturally, they are absolutely terrified. And most of the time when you hear about an angel appearing to somebody, the first words out of their mouths are, hey, don't be afraid, okay? Don't freak out. I've got some news to tell you. I know I look intimidating, but here's what I've got to tell you, and that's exactly what they did, is they told these people, they told these shepherds, don't be afraid, I have great news, just chill out. You're going to find a baby wrapped snugly in strips of cloth and lying in a manger. And then I want to focus on the next two verses. It's Luke chapter 2, verses 13 and 14. If you have your Bibles, we're going to refer to it a few times. You might keep your thumb there. But Luke chapter 2, verse 13 says this. Suddenly, the angel was joined by a vast host of others. So a lot of other angels joined him. The armies of heaven. Imagine what that looks like. That has to be incredibly terrifying. The armies of heaven praising God and saying, and this is what they were saying, glory to God in the highest heaven. And here it comes. Ready for it? And peace on earth. Now, there's more to that. You can see there's more to that verse. But we tend to stop there. We tend to stop with peace on earth. Peace on earth, but there's a qualifier that follows that. And here's what it says. Peace on earth to those whom God is pleased. It's kind of conditional, but we stop with peace on earth. And so here's what happens. Awesome news, right? Peace on earth. We hear that as a society, as a culture, as Christians, as believers. We hear peace on earth, right on, and that's exactly what these shepherds heard. Keep in mind, their home country was being occupied by Romans. They were under the control of another country. They were living under the oppression of the Roman government. They had to pay taxes. They had to do all the stuff that Rome said they had to do. They had to pay homage to Rome. They were living under this and so when these angels appear and they say, hey, guess what? I'm sending a Savior. They're like, right on. Let's go. We're going to boot these Romans out of our country. It's going to be awesome. Jesus is coming. They, like everybody else, they thought that a Savior had come. They thought that he was going to overthrow the stupid Romans and boot them out of the country. All the waiting is over. God is doing something amazing. There was great hope, like we talked about last week. Now, Jesus was 2 pounds, 7 baby Jesus. So it was going to take a while, right? Like he wasn't going to just jump out of the manger and overthrow the Roman government. So they knew it was going to take a minute, but they were hopeful. They were like, oh, great, there's going to be peace on earth. Angels sang it. There's peace on earth. How awesome is that? How exciting. And so later in the same chapter, Luke tells us in Luke chapter 2, verse 52, that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and all the people. So little baby Jesus, little 2 pound, 7 ounce, 2 foot long baby Jesus, grew up, became a toddler, got into things, did everything that little kids do today. I have an 8-month-old in my house right now. He stayed with me last night, and he got up at 6 in the morning, and well, he got up with Cheryl. I didn't hear him. Right? Like men don't hear that, women, just so you know. We don't have that. But anyway, you just picture this Jesus. He was a real person. He was a real baby. He toddled around and he grew up and people knew who he was and they got to know him and they were like, this kid is cool and maybe not. Maybe he was annoying. I don't know. But he just knew a lot of stuff. And I imagine these shepherds kept an eye on him as they grew up because they knew that something cool was about to happen. They didn't know what. They had hope. But the angels had told them. And so I'm sure these guys kept their eye on Jesus and watched him grow up. He had favor with the people that were around him, and he grew up. And fast forward several years, and Jesus started his ministry, and people had to be thinking, okay, here we go. It's game on. We're about to boot these Romans out of here. Jesus is here. And any minute now, we're gonna see some peace on earth finally. And we're gonna get rid of Romans and we're gonna bring some peace on this earth. But if you know anything about first century Israel, and you read any history about it, and the Roman Empire, you will know that they did not see a lot of peace on earth. It was elusive. And in fact, it was quite the opposite. And you might identify with that. I mean, have you watched the news lately? Paid any attention to world events? Hunger and abuse and human trafficking and modern day Sodom and Gomorrah and riots in the streets. I saw a picture this week. I should have had it to save it. It was a picture. This guy actually won an award for taking the picture, but it was a small African child, and he was kneeled down with his face on the ground, and you could tell he was emaciated. And in the background was a vulture waiting for him to die. I don't know if you've ever seen that picture. It impacted the photographer so much that he took his own life 2 months later after taking that picture. There is a lot of hurt in this world. And a lot of stuff that is messed up. So I ask you this morning, you know, we come in here, we wear our Christmas sweaters, and it's a joyous occasion. You think, okay, where's the peace on this earth? And you may be sitting here going, you know what, Trent? I don't feel any peace this morning. In fact, I have very little peace right now in my life. I understand that. And these people understood that. The disciples understood that. And so Jesus addressed it a little bit in chapter 12. Later when Jesus grew up in Luke chapter 12, you can read it. He kind of addressed this whole peace on earth thing. And I got to tell you, I'm just going to warn you, it's not warm and fuzzy. Like, I don't think it would make the Hallmark Channel Christmas story. Okay? It's a little different picture than what you would expect to see on a Christmas card. In fact, the heading in my Bible, when I read this passage of Scripture for Luke chapter 12, the heading of my Bible says, Jesus causes division. That's a great Christmas card. Merry Christmas, everybody. Jesus causes division. Let me just let you in on a secret here this morning. Jesus, and you may find this hard to hear, but Jesus didn't come to create peace on this earth. In fact, in Luke chapter 12, verse 49, this is exactly what Jesus says. I have come, this is Jesus' words, not mine. I have come to set the world on fire, and I wish it were already burning. Wow. There's a Christmas card for you. Merry Christmas. I wish the world was on fire. Hey, I got a Christmas card with a picture on the world on fire. Nobody gets that. Verse 50, the very next verse. I have a terrible baptism of suffering ahead of me, and I am under a heavy burden until it's accomplished. You see, Jesus knew that this was going to get ugly before it got better. Jesus knew what he was going to have to face. He's like, this is going to get ugly, and it's going to start with me and my suffering and my agony before there will ever be any hope of peace on this earth. He goes on in verse 51. It gets better. Do you think I have come to bring peace on the earth? No, he said. These are the words of Jesus. Luke chapter 12. Go read them. What? Here's what he said. He goes on. Do you think I have come to bring peace on this earth? No, I have come to divide people against each other. Well done, Jesus. From now on, families will be split apart, 3 in favor of me and 2 against, or 2 in favor and 3 against. I mean, what? That does not sound like peace on the earth to me. I don't know if it does to you. Why in the world would Jesus say that? And I'll tell you why, because it was in response to Peter's question about people who don't believe. Read it in context. Go back and read chapter 12 of Luke today. Read in context. Jesus said those things in direct response to Peter talking about people who haven't chosen to believe in Jesus Christ. That doesn't sound like peace. Jesus didn't come to bring peace on earth. He brings peace only to those who believe in him. Rest in him, spend time with him, receive from him, and have a growing relationship with him. Until you do those things with Jesus, you're not going to find peace in this world. Tough message, I know, straight from the mouth of Jesus. You see, Jesus knew something. He knew that this message, this gospel, particularly in his time, was divisive. This message and the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ is divisive. It was then, it is now. The message of the gospel was divisive. In Jesus' day, there was this clear distinction between those who had faith in him and those who had faith in Jewish law, and it caused a lot of friction. So much so that he ended up on a cross for it. Jews were under the impression that our righteousness or being right with God came from obeying the law, and Jesus was saying that righteousness came by placing your faith in him and following his teachings. Those who accept his word and his teaching should start to change. Like when you make a choice to believe in Jesus Christ and you say, hey, I'm going to believe in this. I'm going to put my faith and trust in him. I'm going to surrender my life, which is exactly what should happen when you come to in belief and understanding of Jesus Christ. And if you have questions about that, I'll help you with that. But when you surrender your life to Jesus and you're going to say, hey, I'm going to take my marbles and I'm going to put them in his camp. I'm going to listen to what he says and not what everybody else says. And that in itself is divisive. He said it before. He said it's going to divide families. There's going to be 2 for me and 3 against, or 3 for me and 2 against. Those who accept his word and his teaching, if you read the words of Jesus Christ and you try to follow what he says to do, we're not great at it. We're going to mess up. We're going to sin. We're going to be tempted. But if we do our best to try to follow him, it should change us from the inside out. It changes how we think. It changes our attitudes. It changes our behavior. It changes our conduct. I know it needs to change my conduct on the road. I'm working on it. This has always caused conflict throughout history. And people who decide not to accept his teaching will never change their selfish way of living. Because at the core of who we are is we're selfish. We want to hold on to the stuff that we want to hold on to, our money and our dreams and our aspirations and what God has for me, instead of saying, hey, I want what you have for me, Jesus. And that takes guts to follow that. Jesus didn't come to bring peace on the earth. He brings peace only to those who believe in him. Those who choose not to believe will never experience peace. If you're here and you've got your feet dug in the sand and your heels dug in, and you say, you know what, I don't get this whole Jesus thing. I don't know that it's real. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I know he's a real person, but I don't know about that. And I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to hold. I know what's right for me. I'm going to do what's right for me. If you're going to dig your heels in, let me just tell you something. You will never, ever, ever, ever experience peace in this lifetime. You won't. Those who not, and you can see it, they crave it, they look for it everywhere, in careers and money and relationships and sex and entertainment and success and fame, but they will never find the peace they're looking for without a living, breathing relationship with Jesus Christ. You can try, but you're never going to experience it. Jesus knew that he could not bring peace to the earth, not because he didn't want to. He would love to. He died on a cross for it. But he knew that there was always going to be those people that would just dig their heels in and only go so far. So until we lay our stuff down at the feet of Jesus, we'll never experience peace on earth. He knew the heart of man. He knew that the heart of man would trade the peace that he offers for their selfish desires. You've probably seen this saying a lot of times, but I like it. It's no Jesus, like I don't know if she has it on the screen. N-O Jesus, N-O peace. Or you can flip that around and go N-K-N-O-W, no Jesus, and no peace. The N-O Jesus, you're going to have N-O peace. K-N-O-W Jesus, you will K-N-O-W peace. I promise you. So where's the peace on this earth? Here's where it is. It lives within the heart of people who believe in Jesus Christ. That's where peace is. When Jesus had come down to the end of his time on earth, he addressed this with his disciples. Here's what he said. John chapter 16, verse 33. Jesus is getting ready to check out. He told his disciples, I have told you all of this. Why? So that you may have peace in me. Here on earth, these are the words of Jesus. Here on earth, you will have many trials and sorrows. We're all going to experience it. We're going to have loved ones that die. We're going to get diagnoses. We're going to have trouble financially. We're going to have trouble with relationships. We're going to do things that we shouldn't do, that we regret, and we're going to pay the price for it. And we're going to make decisions. And in this life, you are going to have trouble. If you come into a relationship with Jesus Christ, it doesn't eliminate your worldly problems. I think many times we live in America and we want God to just take us from, oh, help us with this and help me with that and help me. We don't suffer here, really. We know that in this world we're going to have difficulty, and we may very well suffer in this world. We're all going to face trials that aren't peaceful. But Jesus told his disciples, and man, if you look at about 11 guys that experienced difficulty, all 11 of those guys had some trouble. But he told his disciples that you could still have peace in me. Here's what he said in Philippians. Paul said this in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for what he has already done. Then, when we do that, when we don't worry about anything, we pray about everything, and we tell God what we've already done, and we thank him for what he's already done, verse 7 says, then, and only then, will you experience God's peace, which exceeds anything that you can understand. So what Paul is saying here is, listen, if you stop for a minute, the biggest like deterrent to anxiety and depression, you know what that is? It's thankfulness. It's gratefulness. When you start sitting down and you make a list and you begin to count your blessings and name them one by one, and you start making a list of that and you thank God for what he's already done, then I'm telling you, there's a peace that comes over you that's like, I don't care what happens to me. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I'm at peace. Have you ever met anybody like that? I've met a lot of people like that toward the end of their life. My dad was. He checked out of here. He told us 100 million times before he died, don't you ever cry for me. I'm at peace with where I'm at in my relationship. Not because he had peace in this lifetime, but he had peace with a Savior that he knew and knew him, and he knew Jesus. Peace exceeds anything that we can understand. I think peace with others. We live in a messed up world, and we live in a world that's out for revenge, and if you do something to me, then I'm going to unblock you and unfriend you on Facebook, and I'm going to cancel you. And how we react in stressful or painful situations should be an example to this world of what is living inside us. When we go through difficult things, there ought to be a peace about us. And I've been around people like that have faced circumstances that like I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And yet they have a sense of peace about themselves. 1 Peter chapter 3, 14 and 15 says, but if you suffer for doing what's right, God will reward you for it. So don't worry or be afraid of their threats. Remember, Jesus said we're going to endure some things. Jesus never said it was going to be easy. In verse 15, instead you must worship Christ as the Lord of your life. And if someone asks, this is where it gets important. We're talking about inviting people to church. our world should see Jesus in us, especially in difficult circumstances. Peter says, instead, you must worship Christ as your Lord. And if somebody asks you about your hope as a believer, my question is, do they see that in you? Do they see that you have hope and peace, and people are on the outside going, man, you're going through that? How are you so calm? Why are you not running around with your hair on fire? That's because I have Jesus. He said, always be ready to explain it. Always be ready to say, well, let me just tell you, I'm going through it, yeah, but I have hope, and I have peace about it because Jesus has changed me from the inside out. Peace exists in your heart. It doesn't exist in the world. And that's the peace that Jesus was talking about. So I'm going to ask Jeremy to come. And I want to talk to two groups here this morning. If you're here this morning and you're in a place, and I don't know where I'm not going to point you out or I don't know who you are. If you're watching online, if you're somebody here that really has not made you would say, Trent, I've probably not made a decision to completely surrender my life. There's some things that I'm still holding on to. And nuts and bolts of it is I'm probably not a believer. And I'm having a hard time understanding church and half the stuff that you talk about on Sunday. If that's you, let me invite you to make a decision. I'd like to invite you to make a decision to choose to believe that Jesus is exactly who he said he was. That he was a real person that grew up with a mom and a dad, and people watched him grow. And he walked on purpose with a cross on his back to pay the price for your sin and mine. If you're a non-believer here this morning, I would love to have a chance to talk to you. Maybe you're a believer here this morning or you used to be, and you used to go to church, and your relationship with Christ was much closer than it is now, and you feel like you've drifted a little. I invite you this Christmas. Want to make this the best Christmas ever? Renew that relationship with him. Come down here and pray at these altars. Find somebody to pray with you. If you're a believer here this morning, I want to talk to you for a minute. Our peace should and can stir the curiosity of non-believers around us. It should. It can give us an opportunity to share this incredibly great news of the gospel. And we can share this peace with people that don't know it. You've experienced something, or at least you claim you have, if you're a believer here. You've experienced something that was life-changing. And it directs the steps of your lives. It directs how you raise your kids, and it directs how you spend your money, and it directs what you do with your time, and how you volunteer, and where you serve, or it should. It can give us the opportunity to share this with somebody who doesn't know it, so they can experience it too, and have the best Christmas they've ever had. Peace on earth. Where is it? It's in the heart of the Jesus follower. It should be. We are, in fact, the peace that the living world, at our jobs, with our families, how we react, how we love others. The peace of God living in and through us can transcend circumstances that we see here on the world around us. I just believe that. Call me crazy. rest assured that the Prince of Peace will come and make everything right one of these days. There will be peace on this earth, but the peace on this earth right now comes through us as believers of Jesus Christ and should spill out all over the people around us. I'm going to ask you to stand this morning. Thank you for being here. I just want you to bow your heads. And it's just now 11 o'clock, so we got some time. If you're here this morning, just everybody bow their head. I'm not trying to embarrass everybody, but we have these altars up here. Some people are reluctant to use them because they don't want people to see them move out of the aisle and say, hey, I either need to deepen my relationship with Jesus Christ. I need to fix some things that in my life that I'm wrestling with. Maybe you just need to come and just experience the peace that only Jesus can give you right here this morning. Maybe you need to come and ask Jesus for the first time in your life to say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna take a bold step and I'm gonna walk down here and I'm gonna pray and ask God to come into my life for the first time in my life. I don't know. If you don't want to come, that's fine. You can pray where you're at. But we're gonna spend just a few minutes here and I'm gonna pray for you this morning. I would encourage you to move closer to Jesus this Christmas. It's the only way that we're going to experience peace. Let's pray. Father, as we just rest in this moment, just ask that your Holy Spirit would move in and out of these rows, that you would draw people that only you can do, God. Only your Holy Spirit can move on people's hearts in this place, and whether they're sitting at home, or whether they're sitting in the pew, or they're sitting where they're at, or they're standing where they're at. Father, that you would speak to them. Help those of us, Lord, who claim to be believers to examine ourselves and see the areas that we need help with, and see the areas that we have failed. The way that we've reacted and the way that we've responded doesn't reflect you, and it doesn't reflect peace in our world. Maybe there's some things that we need to lay down here and just forgive others, or whatever it is, Lord. I just pray that you would meet us here. Maybe there's somebody here standing here this morning, Lord, that doesn't really understand your word, doesn't really understand what it means to be a follower of Jesus, but they feel something in their heart and they feel that you're prompting them. I just pray, Lord, that they would respond to that. And if you're here this morning and that's you, that you would just pray this simple prayer: God, forgive me of my sins. Jesus, I believe you are exactly who you said you are. Come into my life. I want to experience the peace of Christmas this year from the inside out, not from the outside in. Father, help us to know that. I pray for those that are struggling with things, Lord, that it's not peaceful. There's turmoil in marriages or relationships, or there's just in their career or their finances or their health or wherever it is, Lord, that they're experiencing struggle. Lord, that you would remind them that you are in control, that you see far ahead of us, that we can trust you, that we can have hope in you. Father, I just pray for these that are praying here this morning, that you would meet them where they're at. Lord, that this Christmas would be the best Christmas ever because of the relationship that we have with you. Thank you for this family. Thank you for the people that are sitting beside us and in front of us and behind us. Lord, I pray, Lord, as we leave this place today, that you would put us in positions to connect with people who don't know you. And then in those moments, Lord, that we would be responsible and obedient to follow you and to do the things that you would have us to do and to say the things. Give us the words to say, even if it's just a simple, hey, you ought to come to church with me next week. I'll have an invite card for you. I'll save you a seat. Lord, I just pray that we would be salt and light in this world and in Salem and in the surrounding areas. Lord, as we quietly leave this place in your presence this morning, I pray that you would walk with us, that you would guide and direct us, and that you would lead us into a deeper and deeper relationship with you this morning, Jesus. In your precious holy name I pray. Amen. Thank you for being here. Have a fantastic week. Merry Christmas.